Hello, YouTube. Welcome to my channel, Marriage, Politics, and Sports. This is another one of these contentious congressional hearings where Marco Rubio is going back and forth with Representative Meeks. And at one point, I thought Meeks just shut up and let him speak, but they cut out part of a rant that Meeks had, probably saying, reclaiming my time. One of the things that's so distressing with the Democrats, especially black ones, is that over the last 4 years, it became abundantly clear that the whole party is just worthless. And as far as black people are concerned, it's concerted effort to constantly cry wolf and victimization and all the things that, once you become, immersed or propagandized on the plantation, it seems very difficult for the rank and file black person to get out. At least 20% of black men thought, you know what, there's no way we could live under Kamala Harris. And the men got off the plantation. But it's pretty hopeless for black women. Only 8% of them either didn't vote or were conservative. The other 92%, they're very comfortable with the affirmations and the constant coddling that they get from the Democrats. So we don't expect them to go anywhere other than just, wean themselves out as the world changes and leaves them behind. If you look at the last draft jobs report, that so-called most educated, most this and most that, it means nothing when the majority of the black women are losing their jobs. And in a time where there was an employment increase. So there's some delusion going on. So in this kind of conversation back and forth with Rubio, what makes this small clip pretty good is that, I guess once they got rid of Meeks, somebody else allowed Marco Rubio like a 5 to 6 minute rant on exactly what he does and why he does it and why it's required for the United States to be able to have a foreign policy free of obstruction from people who should just shut the hell up and get out of the way. So I'm gonna let this kind of play out, and you'll see the back and forth between Rubio and this guy. And then there's like a little cut in there. It's really subtle that the Rubio goes off on this rant, which is very informative for anybody who wants to listen. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel. I always put out these political, reactions. I have a whole bunch of other videos, as you can see if you go to my channel. I do a little bit of everything, marriage, politics, and sports. They encompass a lot of our lives. So there's always a lot to say. I've been around. I'm a baby boomer, so there's a lot I can always put on wax, so to speak. So without further ado, and any more commentary for me, I might stop it once in a while. Here's Congressman Meeks talking to Marco Rubio, who I never really thought was as cool as he actually turns out to be.
I spend
at the State Department
almost every day. If I'm in the country, I travel a lot. It's part of the job.
So how much time do you spend at the other jobs if you spend every day at the State Department?
Well, now I can't offer you 8 hours today to answer every question on this committee, which you were complaining about earlier.
Did you anticipate, or did you want, when you were sworn in to be the Secretary of State, do you want to have the jobs of
No,
USAID administrator?
No, I did not apply for those jobs. I was asked to serve in those roles, and I'm happy to do it. The archives are doing great.
Based upon your testimony earlier, in some of these other departments, they were duplicative. So if it's duplicative, then get rid of them.
Well, you would have to pass a law to do that if you want to combine those 4 offices in your reorg.
Trying to figure something out. I know you said you read a lot of cables every day, and I know that when you first got sworn in at your confirmation hearing, you stated that being the Secretary of State would be an extraordinary responsibility. Here we are 4 minutes later, but reading cables every day. How much time do you spend at the State Department?
How much what?
How much time?
How I spend
at the State Department?
Almost every day. If I'm in the country, I travel a lot. It's part of the job.
I agree. I understand. But now you have 4 jobs, don't you? Now you're not only the Secretary of State, you are also the acting USAID administrator. You're also the acting archivist. You're also the interim national security advisor.
So listen, so he mentions this to try to say that it's impossible for Marco Rubio to have this many jobs and be effective. This is the point he's trying to make. And watch he gets handled on this particular point.
You cannot spend every day at the State Department and then neglect your other jobs that you have the responsibility to do. So how much time do you spend at the other jobs if you spend every day at the State Department?
Well, now you know I can't offer you 8 hours today to answer every question on this committee, which you were complaining about earlier. Look, here's the thing. All those jobs are being done. USAID largely has been folded into the, do you want my answer? Do you want to?
No, I just want to know this. Did you anticipate or did you want, when you were sworn in to be the Secretary of State, do you want to have the jobs of
no, I did not,
administrator?
No, I did not apply for those jobs. I was asked to serve in those roles, and I'm happy to do it. The archives are doing great. The USAID has been folded under state, so it's a sort of a duplicative role. And the National Security Advisor, which is on an interim basis, has tremendous overlap with what we're doing at the State Department.
Well, then why not get rid of all of them?
See, there you go. I mean, listen, I guess the representative is trying to have a gotcha moment, but just in that just short little clip, Marco said that that where those jobs intersect, it's not a big deal for him to do them. And, you know, he's not the only one. He got staffs of people working for him. The real answer is, I know what I need to do, and I could delegate the things that I don't have to be in charge of while I'm doing something else. Anyway, I mean, that's just how the world works.
And just put everything under you. Get rid of all those departments. If it's not crucial to have someone every day at the as a national security advisor, you folded in USAID, you saying the archives is fine, get rid of them. Wouldn't that be then waste? Based upon how you have determined there's waste, based upon your testimony earlier, and some of these other departments, they were duplicative. So if it's duplicative, then get rid of them.
Well, you would have to pass a law to do that if you want to combine those 4 offices in your reorg.
Well, look, that has
He had a little shit-eating grin on his face when he's telling the congressman that, listen, yeah.
hasn't stopped you in the past because the law requires you to consult with Congress on any proposed reorganization of USAID or the State Department. That hasn't happened. I agree. It should be the Congress's responsibility. Your staff claimed, quote, that you've extensively consulted Congress on your plan to fold USAID into state, but that did not happen. All we members have gotten was 1 hour of a meeting with Pete Morocco, who you later fired and who couldn't answer our most basic questions about the aid freeze. And you've ignored thus far. That's why I want to know about you've ignored nearly 20 letters from this committee seeking information about who sent, since you took office, as well as, not, we spoke one time, but not consulting this committee at all. I don't call that extensive consultation. So you're right. Things that you've done should be in collaboration with the United States Congress. But surely the USAID and all of these other things was not, Congress was not consulted one time. Senator Rubio would have demanded it.
Well, we've complied with every part of the law. Every single part of the law has been complied with, including you, for example, have written us 16 letters. You've been briefed on 7 of them. Some of them we couldn't answer, and we told you why we couldn't answer, because they were subject to litigation. 4, you've gotten answers in writing, and 5 we've gotten just in the last few days. Well, 16 letters. I've been there 17 weeks. You write me a letter a week.
I'm going to yield my last.
Where for the first time since the end of the Cold War, the United States had a near-peer competitor and adversary.
If you caught it, there was a cut in there, and they didn't let the representative finish. So I think there's somebody else who asked Rubio a question because, and it probably was a Republican, because they're letting him speak. The Democrats always cut people off talking about reclaiming their time. I mean, because they're pretty, for right now, they're pretty worthless. They don't have no plans, no nothing. All they are is really obstructionists against Donald Trump and his administration with their activist judges that they have in their back pocket. So listen to Rubio go ahead and break down some of the foreign policy and why it's important that we do the things that we do. But the things that they're doing for us as Americans right now. So let me back up just a little bit and let me shut up.
Few days. Well, 16 letters. I've been there 17 weeks. You write me a letter
I'm going
a
to
week.
yield my last.
Where for the first time since the end of the Cold War, the United States had a near-peer competitor and adversary in the state of China. And we need to confront that. And our foreign policy needs to be geared around that and on the realities of this new world. And so what that means is we have to have a State Department that can deliver on a foreign policy that is rooted in the national interest of the United States. To defend the national interest of the United States requires us, number one, to make sure that every dollar we spend and every action we take has to have measurable outcomes that deliver for the American people. They have to either make our country safer, or they have to make our country stronger, or they have to help make our country more prosperous. It has to do at least one of those three things. And ideally, whether it's a program or a measure that we take, it should do all three of them. Now, what that means is that there are some great causes in the world. There really are. There are some great causes. There are some horrifying things that are happening on the planet. America cannot solve every single one of them. What we need to focus on is prioritizing our foreign policy to those areas that are in our national interest. Now, we will still remain the largest contributor of foreign aid and humanitarian assistance on this planet by far. The United States, even under the budget that's before you today, and the changes we have made, will still contribute more in foreign aid than the next 10 countries combined, than the entire OECD. The next closest country is not China, it's Germany, and it's way behind us, even now. But that foreign aid has to be geared towards our national interests. We need to design a State Department that delivers on that. Yes, we canceled a bunch of contracts in USAID. Some were stupid and outrageous. Others didn't serve the national interest, and others we kept. And we are folding it under the Department of State. And you know why? Because we want it to be part of the toolbox of foreign policy, not a standalone. It is not charity. Foreign aid is not charity. It is designed to further the national interest of the United States. So we will do humanitarian assistance. We will do food assistance. We will do developmental assistance. And we will do security assistance. But we will do it driven by our embassies and our regional bureaus. Because what those issues mean look very different in Guatemala than they may in Chad or in Kenya or in some other part of the world in the Indo-Pacific. And so one of the things that we have tried to do in our reorganization is drive power and influence on policymaking and decision-making to the regional bureaus and ultimately to our embassies. Our embassies, our ambassadors, are the front line of American foreign policy. The most important thing I do every single day is not read memos, it's read cables. Every night I get 10, 15 select cables from stations around the world, different embassies. The best ideas in that building come from the ground up from our embassies. Now, I want to tell you something else. Look, I did serve in the Senate for a long time, so this is a new job to me. When I got there, I'd get a memo. I still get these memos. I should have brought one today. In order for an idea to reach me, a decision to reach the Secretary of State, some of these things have to be checked off by 40 people, 40 boxes. And if any one of these people has a question, they can hold it up before the idea even ever gets to me.
That's incredible, the level of bureaucracy. And it's absolutely true. Look at it. I mean, 40, and any one of those people, like you say, can stop it. And the message will never really get to him, period. And I could guarantee you that if he gets 40 in that old system, there was probably 150 or maybe more sent. And some of just deep six somewhere along the way.
Now that sounds like a crazy thing to begin with. We can't afford it in the 21st century. We have to be able to move very quickly. And a case in point is what happened last week. Syria, under a new authority, granted people with some checkered background, is on the verge of collapse potentially. And if it collapses, it will devolve into civil war. And civil war will mean that it will become a playground for ISIS and other jihadists, not to mention Iranian influence coming back in. So there's no guarantee that by outreach and working with the transitional authority in Syria, things are going to work out. It may work out, it may not work out. But if we don't reach out and try, it's guaranteed to not work out. And so we had to move very quickly to action that. If we had not done sanctions relief last week, and now the EU has followed suit, then our partners in the region could not have provided donor dollars so that transitional authority could try to stabilize its governance of the country. That place could have collapsed within weeks and become an ISIS playground once again. There is no way that a traditional system could have delivered on that. It would have gone to the interagency. It would have gone to 6 to 9 months of debate. Any individual could have held it up with an information hold, and we never would have acted. We can't afford it. The world moves too quickly. And so we need to drive policy from the ground up, from our embassies and our regional bureaus, and that's what we're doing. And that's what we're doing. On the last point I would make about foreign aid has to be part of our portfolio, part of what we do, and it has to be consistent with our agenda in any region of the world or any country. And oftentimes you will find, and maybe some of you have found when you travel, you go talk to an ambassador and they will tell you what USAID was pushing and what they are pushing in the country are not just different, they're in contradiction. And in many cases, USAID programs were undermining the mission of the embassy. That's a fact. And I heard that over and over again. I've heard it in the Caribbean basin, and I've heard it in other parts of the world. I am not the first Secretary of State that wanted USAID and foreign aid to be under the Department of State. I'm just the first that's been able to do it. And I'm glad we've done it, and it will deliver better foreign policy and, frankly, more accountability and more oversight opportunities for your committee down the road. Thank you.
Hey, that was really good rant right there by Marco Rubio. Hey, listen, I never heard him, really paid attention to what he had to say from that standpoint, and it was pretty good. I would say go back and listen to the whole thing again. Excuse me. But anyway, so I thought that was good. Just a little short live video, one of my political rants and reactions and pain, marriage, politics, and sports. Over and out.